The Mamar we're going to learn this morning was delivered by the Rebbe in a Shabbos just like this one, Parshas Miketz. Was the Shabbos Hanukkah. The year was 1985, Tov Shem Vav. It was a very memorable time. And this is how the Mamar goes. We're going to talk about right and left. We're going to talk about Judaism's way of right and how Hanukkah seems to violate it. Ner Chanukah, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbos tells us that the lamp of Hanukkah, mitzvah lahanicha al Pesach beisim ibachutz. The mitzvah, the mandatory thing, the appropriate thing, is to place it on the doorway, close to the outside. And then the Gemara asks, v'heichan manachla, and where is it placed? And a discussion ensues. And the Gemara comes to the conclusion, umasik mismoil, that the Menorah should be placed on the left side of the door, in the left doorpost. And the reason the Gemara tells us is bichdei, in order, shetehei mezuzah miyamin, v'ner Chanukah mismoil. The mezuzah should adorn the right side of the doorpost, and the Hanukkah lamps should adorn the left side. So here is our Mamar from 90 years earlier of the Rebbe Rashab, which at the time had just seen the light of print for the first time. And the Rebbe focused on this Mamar, and he repeated much of the content of that Mamar in this Shabbos. The Yesh Lahavin, that this statement of the Talmud necessitates a better understanding. Lama Nemar, why do we say Ner Chanukah mismoil dafke? Why do we say that the Ner Chanukah should specifically, with emphasis, be on the left side? So that's the Mamar, the way it's talked about by the Rebbe Rashab in Tafresh Nun Vav, which was in 1895. But the Rebbe adds, V'yesh lahesev b'zeh, that he adds his own creative take on that question. Dahare Ner Chanukah He mitzvah kechol mitzvahs. Ner Chanukah is, after all, a mitzvah, like all the mitzvahs. And kulan, all of the mitzvahs, if you have to say there's a rule for mitzvahs, the rule would be shayaches lebechinas yamin, that mitzvahs are on the right side of things. That's what I called it, Judaism's right of way. The right way is the mitzvah way. Ki yadua, as is known, Shakol haguf nichlol biyamin, that sometimes when we talk about positioning one's body, we emphasize the right side. Dezeu hatam bepashtos, this is the straightforward reason. Al ma'asha mezuzah miyamin, why the mezuzah is on the right side. So I want to make it very clear to everybody that this is not some superstitious thing about righties and lefties, but rather the Torah tells us that God created all of humanity slightly off kilter. Just about every person has a stronger side and a weaker side. Even though we don't look off kilter, we look kind of balanced. And if somebody were to look imbalanced, that would be unusual and strange. And yet somehow God couldn't get it right. I'm not sure if there's righties or lefties when it comes to animals. I don't know that the ox has a stronger side and a weaker side, but I do know that virtually all people, regardless of creed, color, or background, and for the best of our knowledge, from the very beginning of time, always have a stronger side and a weaker side. And that begs the obvious question. God, who created such an exquisite and perfect world, why did He create us all imperfect, with such a major imbalance? Our limbs are more or less exactly the same size. We look balanced, but in fact, we are profoundly imbalanced. So from a Torah perspective, the reason is because there are differing emotions and differing attitudes. One has to be stronger, and one has to be weaker. In danger of sounding too simplistic, we each have a benevolent side, a kind side, which is called in the language of Chassidus and Kabbalah chesed, and we each have a disciplinarian side, a harsh side, a tough side. Both are necessary. You need discipline in your life, you need kindness, and you need benevolence in your life. What should have greater emphasis, or should one have more emphasis than the other? And the answer the Torah gives us is there should always be more emphasis on benevolence and kindness, inasmuch as you need two hands to clap with. And there has to be the discipline as well. And if it's a life where there's only benevolence and no disciplines, then we have a problem. But nonetheless, there has to be a greater emphasis. As it says, Yemin mikareves, you draw closer with the right hand. Smoil doiche, you push away with the left hand. So you push and you parry, and the truth is that both are necessary. It is important for us to be able to embrace things. That's a primary function. A human being has to be able to embrace and draw close. A human being also has to know how to parry and push away. Both are necessary. The question is, where should greater emphasis be placed? And the answer is clearly on the notion of the positive side. The Torah always said this. Recently, psychology has come around to acknowledge this and say this. Now psychologists are saying that for every negative word you say to your children, you should be saying 9 positive words to your children. Yeah, that's what Torah says. Yemin mekareves. Use your stronger side. Place greater emphasis on the positive, not only disciplinary and criticism. So this is the meaning of the mitzvahs on the right side. It means the greater emphasis, the greater strength with the mitzvah is on the right side. Now some people are different, which means that their left side is really their right side. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with being a lefty. It just means most people their stronger side is the right side. So the chesed is on the right and the gvur is on the left. And for some people, the chesed is on the left and the gvur is on the right. It just means it's a different form of a different style of the same thing. So Yemin doesn't mean right. Yemin means the stronger side. Which takes us back to the idea that since most mitzvahs are on the right side, and how do we know which is right? It should be right or left. So first of all, if you're a lefty, a lot of the things that people do on the right side, you end up doing on your left side because you're a lefty. Because it has to be your Yemin. Which goes iter, a person who is the other way around, it says, Shesmoil Shalah Yemin Kaladam. That his left is everybody else's right. In other words, as you like to say, lefties are in the right mind. Because when you're a lefty, your right brain is operating instead of your left brain. So the point is that mitzvahs always utilize the stronger side. There's one mitzvah which emphasizes the weaker side, and therefore it usually goes on the left side, and that's tefillin. And that's like a chiddush, that's like a big novelty. And the reason is because we say it says yad keya. Yodcha is spelled unusually, and it can be divided into 2 words. It's just the weaker hand. And the idea is that tefillin comes to work with our weaknesses. But usually, you put your right foot forward. You put your best foot forward. You get the right start. Start off on the right foot. That means you put a greater emphasis when it comes to doing a mitzvah. So the Rebbe says, this is the question then. If a mitzvah has a right of way, which means you always use the stronger side, why is it when Ner Chanukah, we seem to do things backwards? We use the weaker side. You know, there's an English word called sinister. It does not conjecture up positive images. Sinister means dangerous, dark, foreboding, getting caught by surprise. The name sinister, the word sinister, is actually from Latin, siniste, which means left. And the reason that the left was associated with sinister, or that which is frightening or dangerous, is because in the world where people live by the sword, an attack on the right side left you ample possibility for defense. You get attacked on the right side, you reach across to your sword, and you can defend yourself. However, an attack on the left side was considered to be a sinister attack, because by the time you reposition yourself to draw your sword, you aren't anymore. Right? Because your sword's you use your right hand. So by the time you have to reach over to reorient yourself for the attack that comes on the left, you could be finished already. So that's where the idea of sinister came along, on the left side, and that's why the left is called sinister. Of course, if you're a lefty, that would be great to get attacked on your left side, right? Because you just reach over and draw your sword from the other side. Especially based on what the Mittler Rebbe says in the Siddur. That the mezuzah is a representation of all the mitzvahs. The chol ha-mitzvahs inyanim u'bechinas yamin v'chesed v'oir. All mitzvahs as a rule represent right, represent benevolence or kindness, represent light. K'mesher kosav ki ner mitzvah v'toira oir. The mitzvah is like a lamp, and the Torah is filled with light. That's why it's shayach to bechinas yamin. You don't like the table here? What's the... Huh? You sit mirochek over there. So. Okay. My time on Ner Chanukah Mismael. So in that case, we established this notion that a mitzvah should always be on the right side. Then for heaven's sake, why is a mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, which is actually light, one of the few mitzvahs that's not proverbially light, but it's literally quite actually light, and yet it goes on the left side. Furthermore, there is even an opinion in the Gemara and Shabbos on 2 pages later that says that the pasuk, the verse Ner Mitzvah V'Torah actually refers to Hanukkah. Well, if it refers to Hanukkah, for heaven's sake, that if mitzvahs are mitzvahs are light, mitzvahs are benevolent, mitzvahs are chesed, where should the mezuzah be? On the right side. Where should Ner Chanukah be? On the right side. Like, what's the problem? Have you mezuzah on the right side? Have you menorah on the right side? And especially because the flame of Hanukkah, the lamp of Hanukkah, Shumi Smoil, Shezeu Dafke Kashesh Mezuzah. Here's the interesting thing. Lest you think that the Hanukkah menorah is left-oriented by its nature, think again. Because if there's no mezuzah on the right side, so for example, you're staying in a hotel, check into the hotel, and that night falls, now you have to light the menorah. Where should you light the menorah? In the doorway. Where do you light the menorah? Which side of the door? On the right side. Why? Because there's no mezuzah there. So it's not as if the menorah is really a left-oriented thing. When it comes to tefillin, it's always on the left side. It doesn't matter if you wear your watch on your right side. Tefillin is always going to be on the weaker hand. But mezuzah, Ner Chanukah, we say, well, it depends. If there's a mezuzah, then you put it on the left side. If there's no mezuzah, you put it on the right side. Oh, so it really is part of this right-of-way thing. So if it's part of the right-of-way, why doesn't it just remain on the right side? V'mei mezuzah, so then we have it also Ner Chanukah mitzvah yumin. Shemizem mashma, the intimation is, shekashesh mezuzah, when you have a mezuzah, all the things that require right of way are somehow included already in the mezuzah. This really has to be understood. Why then is the Ner Chanukah always on the left? Never adds, as what he called the Mamar HaMuzgar, just like kind of mentioned while we're at it, that this idea that when there is no mezuzah, the menorah itself would go on the right side. This is an exception for all rules of the Torah. Why? Because the Torah usually takes the well-trodden path, the majority. Torah will always use majority. So whatever the majority is, that's what Torah will use. Not because it doesn't mean there can't be an exception, but because we follow the rule. So the rule is right of way, then it's right of way. You're a lefty, all right, so you're a lefty. HaTorah al pi haroiv tedaber. Most people are righties, so therefore we go right instead of left. V'hainu, shekasheyesh mitzvah, when there's a mitzvah, shetama shayach rak beroiv hamikrim, when the reason is related to most circumstances, not all circumstances, hine afal pike neisa mitzvah zu, gam b'mokim hamiyut, and the mitzvah would be fulfilled also in the minority situation. In other words, the minority would be the exception, and therefore we would still follow the majority. That's the rule. Even though with that minority, that slender percentage, this reason doesn't apply. Nonetheless, we would say, HaTorah al haroiv tedaber. The Torah speaks about the majority. So one of the interesting things that even lefties do on the right side is blowing the shofar. The shofar has to be blown on the side of the mouth, and it's supposed to be blown on the right side. And why do we do that? Because it says, HaSatan yamed al yaminei, that the Satan, or that which could obstruct the growth of Yiddishkeit and the path in which we draw close to Hashem, so the obstructing forces Hashem places on the right side. So therefore the shofar is supposed to remove or destroy or pulverize or vaporize all of these negative influences, and therefore the shofar needs to be also on the right side. What about a lefty? He also blows the shofar on the right side. Why? Because HaTorah al haroiv tedaber, since most people would have a stronger side, would be on the right. And since it says HaSatan yamed al yaminai, which means the Satan attacks you in your stronger side, he has no fear, he doesn't try to hide in the shadows, he has a full frontal attack, the Yetzer Hara, he knocks you down straight head on, takes you on. So therefore, we're going to blow the shofar on that side too. This fellow is different, so what? Haroiv al pi haroiv tedaber. L'chayre, it would seem, ostensibly speaking, the same thing should be by Ner Chanukah. Since most doorways where you're going to light a menorah have a mezuzah, and the Ner Chanukah then becomes connected to the left, so if so, Yitzarach li is hatakana sheNer Chanukah mismoil, that Ner Chanukah should always be on the left side, which incidentally, I've seen a lot of people make that mistake. Why? Because it's rare. It's rare to be in a hotel for Hanukkah. It's rare to be in a place without a mezuzah. So therefore, they naturally gravitate towards placing the menorah always in the left side. But that's actually not actually correct. Even though it would seem, from the usual halachic etiquette, that would seem like the right thing to do. Mezuzah, left. Why? That's mezuzah. Ner Chanukah. Why? Because that's where Ner Chanukah goes. But it's not like that. Afal Pikein, Hadinu, here the unusual halacha is that we have to actually look at the circumstances rather than follow the majority of situations. And Ner Chanukah would always go on the left as long as there's a mezuzah. However, imein mezuzah b'Pesach, if there is no mezuzah placed in this doorway, then the halacha changes. Azay Ner Chanukah miyamin. V'layei, that not only that this halacha is stated matter-of-factly. Umashma, since the halacha stated matter-of-factly, it would seem the gam imzeh she'ein mezuzah hu hepech Shulchan Aruch, that even though not having a mezuzah is the opposite of Jewish law mandates a mezuzah. Mikol makom gamaz Ner Chanukah miyamin. Nonetheless, Ner Chanukah, even though that's a circumstance, a set of situation which is unwholesome, not ideal, nonetheless, we have to evaluate the situation and say, okay, the mezuzah, the menorah will be placed now on the right side. Very unusual. So what does this tell us, though? If you really think about it, it tells us that it's not like the Hanukkah menorah is not connected to the right. It is connected to the right. It's just that somehow the mezuzah takes its place. The mezuzah does the job of its being connected to the right. But nonetheless, if the mezuzah wouldn't be there, then Ner Chanukah would also rotate to the right. So in that case, why is the Ner Chanukah not on the right? Use your doorpost, that's great. Put the Ner Chanukah on the right side. The mezuzah is permanent, yeah, so what's the problem? Why can't you have on Hanukkah more than a regular day, you got a mezuzah?
More seasonal.
That's fine, so it's seasonal. And on Hanukkah, that side gets an extra infusion. It's not like the mezuzah only protects you on your right side. Mezuzah protects you on your right side and your left side. And by the way, every right side of the door is sometimes the left side of the door. No? You put it in the right, liyamin hanichnas, the right of the entrance. As they say, whatever goes up must come down. Whenever you have a door to go in, it's also going to be a door to go out, which is a question oftentimes we have. How do you decide which is the right side? How do you decide how to look at a doorway? Am I going in or going out? Usually with 50% of the time we're going out. So even how we decide which is the right side is a mystery anyway. So therefore, however, you come to the conclusion there's a right side, stick with it. It fills the whole doorway. You don't need two mezuzahs. You don't need one on the right and the left. The right side is good enough. So put the Ner Chanukah there as well. So here is the kernel of the explanation. The entire Torah, all of its instructions and commandments, nitnu, were given to us, kedei levader, in order to refine, lezachech, to purify, lahales eseder ishtalshlos, to elevate, to redirect the evolution, the choreographed evolution of creation. How everything goes from level to level. There's a chain of descent. There's a pecking order. And things don't begin with material reality. They end up being material reality. But first there's a whole slew of different myriads of layers, one upon the other. Just like, for example, a person might do something. You say, well, how did a person do something? Well, before he did, he first must have thought about it and probably even spoke about it. No. He never spoke about it, never thought about it, just suddenly did that. Yeah, I don't buy that. If a person did it, there's something behind it. So we always say when a person blurts something out and says something, what would we naturally think? That's indicative of what the person was talking about. It's indicative of what the person was thinking about. It tells you where the person's subconsciousness is. Because invariably anything that's ever spoken, and certainly everything ever acted upon, also began first in the mind. That's an example of ishtalshlos. There's a pecking order. There's an order of descent. There's how things developed. How did you end up doing this? Well, I analyzed the situation. I came to a conclusion. I got really excited about it or felt passionate about it. I thought about it practically. I made a plan. I was in a communicative mode. I engaged. And then finally I executed. So until the same thing, when God creates the world, the same thing happens until we get to this lower world. And in fact, Where do we come in? Are we tapped on to fix God's thought? Are we requested that we should fix God's communication? We're asked to fix God's actions, to perfect God's actions. God purposely created a world which is incomplete. And our job is to re-engineer. Our job is not to re-engineer the Torah, chas v'shalom. Our job is not to remix God's instructions. Our God is to carry out God's instructions so that the world He created, which was deficient, can reach its fruition and perfection. That means avodas habirurim. That's the work of, so to speak, rectification. We have to rectify, make right. Therefore, kol ha-mitzvahs nitnu b'olam hazeh dafke. As a rule, mitzvahs are given in this world. We say in the other world, in Gan Eden, in the world of neshamas, mitzvahs cannot be performed. Angels cannot perform mitzvahs. Mitzvahs have to be performed right here, in this world. And it's the idea of birur ha'olam hatachten. This is like, we use the term refinement. Like somebody takes ore, gold ore, nickel ore, silver ore, whatever ore is taking, like it's material taken out of the ground. It's filled with toxins and silt and unnecessary things that just get in the way, and you have to burn it off. Even refine it. Even the gas that comes out of the ground can't be pumped straight into your car. It can't power your machine. You have to first refine it. And incidentally, if you have a better car, a car with a more sensitive stomach, you have to give more refined gas, which invariably will cost more because more of the toxins got burned off. So if they keep refining it, then it's very refined. If it's a really good car, it needs really refined gas. And then the car works really well. Otherwise, you're filling it with garbage. And the car ends up has sediment left behind, which is not healthy for it. And this idea of birur, this idea of refining, this is b'shvil ze yarda haneshama lamata. That's why the neshama came down. The neshama could have remained on high. The neshama was very, very happy, quite satisfied on high. So why did the neshama have to come into a situation where there's the opposite of satisfaction, and angst, and difficulty, and challenges, and lack of joy and wholesomeness and serenity? The neshama came because it has a job. Before the neshama came, he called neshamaso havakaima b'diyuknei kama malka kadisham. Every soul occupied a perfectly balanced, wonderful reality, as the Zohar says. Despite the fact that the soul was residing in a beautiful frame, in a wonderful atmosphere and reality, the neshama was sent on a dark, difficult, dangerous mission. And why was it sent on this mission? It came to refine the world. To take from the material, the crass, coarse nature of the physical world, and take that omigashmius, and to take from the physical material to create tashmishik dusha, things which lend themselves towards the promulgation of godliness and holiness, to create mitzvah items out of it. And there are many levels of this, like it's explained in Chassidus, and even in the concept of nigla the Torah, the revealed areas of Torah. This is why the whole body is represented by the right side. The mitzvah is connected to the right side. In Yana, what's the idea of the mitzvah? Remember, right represents which? Benevolence or discipline? Chesed or gvura? Chesed. Every mitzvah ultimately is an act of chesed. Yemin mekareves. I'm supposed to take worldliness, I'm supposed to take the material matter, I'm supposed to draw it close. I'm supposed to harness, channel, and redirect it. I'm supposed to be able to utilize it for a good thing. That means taking it to the right, drawing it close. So of course we have 365 negative mitzvahs. And the negative mitzvahs are things we should push away, the things we should avoid. That's the left side. But what about mitzvahs, things we should do? Those are things we should draw close. Those are the precious metals or skins or any other kind of material from the physical world that has to be utilized for a holy and a sacred purpose. And so the soil and the minerals and the rocks are used to build the shul, and the wood is used to create the structure, and the leather is used to make the tefillin and the Sefer Torah, and so on and so forth. And all of this, that becomes elevated for Hashem. So it should be on the right. Mitzvahs should be on the right. Mitzvahs are about chesed. Mitzvahs are about engagement, not disengagement. Engagement is always the right side. Omnam, however, ksiv, it is also written, Asher bara elikim lasos, that God has created lasos, to make, to create. Lasos l'sakin, make means to fix, to rectify. Ki afshe bebriya mitzad atzma ksiva yara elikim es kol asher asa. Even though with regard to the entirety of creation, the scripture states God saw or reviewed everything that He had made. V'hinei toiv ma'od. He said, wow, this is great. This is really good. Nonetheless, despite the fact that creation is really good, the person has to make it even better. So it's not make the world great again, it's to make the world great. The world is good, now make it great. And as they say, if good is good, is better not better? Our job is to improve. Every generation's job is to improve on that which you were handed by the previous generation. Our job is not to change everything. Our job is not to just break all the wheels because they're old wheels and now we have to use square wheels because, round wheels are just so boring. But our job is to find out how we can take that round wheel and make it even more effective, make it even better. And that's invariably what people do. If you look at technology, what do they do? What is technology for the most part about? Making it better and better and better. Why we put a man on the moon before we put wheels on the suitcase is a really good question. But nobody thought of that. And in the last 25 years, they've made even better suitcases on wheels. Now it's even more effortless to push the suitcase. And so on and so forth. The whole purpose, the whole content of a person's efforts, his devotion to Hashem is that it should be noticeable. When you look at the world, what should you see? You shouldn't see a world that's devoid of God, even though God created the world that way. He created a world in which He encoded His presence. He did not place His presence overtly. However, that's the way God made it. What's our job? Undo it. It's just like a person would say to you, oh, God made this person sick. Who am I to make him healthy? You say, what are you, an idiot? God gave you the opportunity as a doctor now to heal this person. Yes, you're right, God did make him sick. Now you make him healthy. God made a world that conceals godliness. Now you find a way to reveal godliness. Overcome the malaise and illness that God placed in this world. Hainu the gambe mokem hara, that even in the bad place, in the bad or dark corners of the world, it's not enough that you should turn away from evil. But there has to be not just turning away, but rather v'asei toiv. Now do good. Engage, don't disengage. Transform, rarefy, sublimate. Rotate on its axis. Hafichas hara l'toiv. V'aveda zoi hi aveda b'kava smol. This is called working on the left side, the sinister side, the dark side. This is the tikkun side of smell. This is how we fix, not by ignoring and disengaging, but engaging with the left side and finding a way to turn the left side around. It's exactly about this. It says, miyaminoi, from the right side, eish das lama, a fiery law is given, shekashem sheyes b'toyra b'chinas yamin v'chesed, just as the Torah has within it right, or benevolence and kindness, kach yesh gam inyan eish das, it also has fire, and fiery is eish ugvuda, the fire represents discipline, the fire is harsh, the fire is demanding, the fire takes everything and breaks it apart, the fire is the left side. So Torah is right, miyaminoi, but the Torah is also left, it's also eish das, it's a fiery law. The inyan zen nimser dafke. This was given over into the hands of humanity. God says, don't just make the good good, don't just make the good better, take the bad and make it good too. And that's the idea of lasis l'sakin, to do but also to fix. Which mitzvahs work on that side? The rabbinic mitzvahs. Who made the rabbinic mitzvahs? The rabbis. Who are the rabbis? They are people. People. I want God mitzvahs. Who needs people's mitzvahs? They say, what are you talking about? God's mitzvahs are on the right side. The people's mitzvahs, meaning God legislated, gave the power to people, not just people, Sanhedrin, to make mitzvahs. And then what's the effort, what's the effect, what's the impact of the people? Laseis l'takin. Not just to make better, but actually to fix, to take that which is dark and to make it light-filled. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Torah, that the rabbinic mitzvahs were also intended to be mitzvahs for us from Hashem. But Hashem said, these mitzvahs you have to figure out. These mitzvahs have to be your contribution. And since humanity is called upon to fix the world that God created, when we say there's a mitzvah that we that the Jewish people, the people made, the people's mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that especially emphasizes this. As is known, that a mitzvah of B'divrei Seifim yesh toikif, there's a greater strength, and there's also chavivus. It's so cherished. Hashem loves those mitzvahs even more. Therefore, that's where those mitzvahs are empowered, that they, only they, can fix the left side. How do the rabbis have the power? From the Torah itself. That's how we know, of course, you make a bracha. How do you make a bracha on a rabbinic mitzvah? What's the answer? The Torah said, whatever the rabbis say, you must do. So how does the rabbi have the power to make a mitzvah? Because the Torah gave him that power. So ultimately, it comes from the right side. However, it's handed, so to speak, to people. It's handed to the dark side, to the left side. It's not just lasos, it's also letakein. And this is the idea that mitzvahs and divrei seifrim, they are the mitzvahs that we're not allowed to add to the biblical mitzvahs, like Tosef it says. But on the other hand, the rabbis are given the power to legislate additional mitzvahs. And these mitzvahs, as you can guess, this is pretty predictable at this point, are able to deal not only with the right, not only making the good better, but also taking the dark and that which seems not good, and fixing that and making that great as well. And that's why, where does the menorah belong? Organically and naturally? On the left side. Of course, if there's no mezuzah, we got a problem. You can't ignore the right side. It's only after the right side has been fixed that we can go to the left side. So if somebody doesn't even have a mezuzah, vei is mir, okay, better get your menorah on the right side, because you're not the way it's supposed to be. But once you do, you utilize, you harness, you channel the ability that Hashem gives us naturally and organically with the Torah on the right side, we're given the ability even to elevate the left side, which means that the Hanukkah menorah can illuminate even the darkness. It can reach to places that otherwise Judaism would say this is beyond our purview. Torah says, I can't get there. I don't know, I can't help you. Too far away. Comes Ner Chanukah, the superhero, and Hanukkah says, I can get there too. This also can be illuminated. This also can be filled with light. This also can be perfected and made wholesome, good, and great. And that's what the Hanukkah menorah is about. And ultimately, this is what leads us in the direction of Mashiach. Menorah will be Amen.
Even though you place it on the left,